Good evening. Welcome to the Painesville Township Zoning Commission meeting, February 13th, 2023. Welcome. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Okay, John Hott.
Here.
Daryl.
Here.
John Everett.
Here.
And Chairman.
Here.
I missed somebody?
All right, general.
Mark.
And I'm here.
It's
All
Mark.
right, well,
Mark.
she's a chairman, and I
Last is
just
certainly
jumped.
not
I just
least.
jumped in, you know.
Of course.
I guess I can, whatever. All right. Next is the general commentary, questions, or inquiries from the public. If you have any inquiry or questions that is not, repeat, not on the agenda tonight, this is your time. If you have a comment about what's on the agenda, which I think some of you do, then that'll be later on in the meeting when we have the public hearing or when we have the site plan review. So if anybody has any comments other than what's on the agenda tonight?
What is the agenda? Can you say that?
What is the
I mean, we're
agenda?
on video. I'm just curious what it is.
Like the site, like the,
I've never been to one of these meetings.
no problem, sir. All right. So having said that, do we get any other questions from the comments from the public?
I have not.
Rachel? Harley?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So we'll go now call the regular meeting to order. And we have the minutes that were mailed to us for January 9th meeting. Members, any changes or corrections? Hearing none. Entertain a motion for approval of the January 9th meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Daryl, second by
Second.
Mark. Comment, discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
John Everett.
Yes.
Daryl.
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
John Hott.
Yes.
And Chairman.
Yes. Okay. Site plan, architectural reviews. Is the applicant here? This is a 37,670 square foot expansion of an existing 162,000 industrial building used for offices and vehicle storage, sorry. And it's located at 5555 Lakeshore Boulevard, Lake Tran Board of Trustees. Lake Tran, you're on.
Hi, I'm Ben Capel. I'm the CEO for Lake Tran. Thank you for having us tonight. I have my architects here to answer the super technical questions, but happy to kind of answer any questions the commission has or talk about the project or anything you would like.
But why don't you go over the project a little bit and what you are doing at the site?
Sure. So our building was built between 1989 and 1990. Hasn't seen any substantial upgrades since then. You know, we've done maintenance, roof replacement, HVAC things that have broken. We received some grant money to expand the facility for office space and for vehicle storage, and renovate and replace a lot of the mechanical systems that we haven't touched that are 30 years old and inefficient. So this is about a $20 million project to add, I can't remember the total number of vehicle storage space. I think it's around 28,000 vehicle storage space, 26,000,
26.7.
and then 11,000 square feet of office space with substantial interior renovations.
Mhm.
So we are expanding the building out the back a little bit, which you can't really even see from the road. And then in the front, we are taking up some existing parking lot and turning that into building. We have enough parking on site, so there's no additional parking being created with the project. But that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Okay. All right. Staff report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the expansion of the building, due to the size of the current parcel, they have more than enough space to accommodate the expansion, without negatively impacting the site or surrounding areas. The expansion itself meets all of the criteria in our zoning resolution in regards to breaks in long walls, the use, and the general architecture of the structure. I think would be, it's more modern. It'd be a general improvement. So I would recommend approval as submitted. There are no concerns that I see.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Chairman.
We got the proposed plan from the applicant. Members have looked at it, did your homework since January. So, so anybody have any comments or questions for the applicant at this time? Daryl, go ahead.
I was looking for a tree planting plan. I didn't see one that I could recognize.
Most of the trees that are on the site are being retained.
Okay.
So we have, there's a wooded section up front with some trees around our detention basin. Because we're taking up existing parking, there's really no trees impacted there. And then the back of the building is currently kind of a gravel pathway.
Mm-hmm.
So there really isn't any change to the landscaping, except for adjacent to the building.
Yeah, if you follow this, I don't have a problem with it. It'll make it look pretty spiffy. If you'll
Yeah,
allow me that term.
absolutely. We do have, there is additional landscaping being installed right adjacent to the building. So our site is pretty extensively landscaped now. We want to retain that to kind of keep that vibe with the residents that we have now.
Well, if your architectural rendering is what you're going for, I don't have a problem with it.
Our Board of Trustees has approved the project exactly like you have seen it, so that architectural rendering is
Okay.
accurate to what we plan to do.
Okay.
Daryl, any more questions?
No.
Anybody else have a question?
No, just complimentary to the quality of the imagery. I
Yeah.
hope it comes out to the same quality as we see here, because it is beautiful.
Yeah, we have homes on multiple side of us, so we wanted to make sure we maintain a good, image and good barrier between those homes with the appropriate landscaping, and make sure we maintain, a high quality environment just for anybody who uses us or lives nearby.
And landscaping you have in front of the building is going to what you're showing is what you're going to be doing with the landscaping?
Yeah.
Okay. And the lighting's going to be, is there going to be lighting on this thing?
Yeah, there won't be too much lighting change. We have street lights. All of them are dark sky compliant, so we shouldn't really see a major change in the lighting. There'll be some changes with the office space in the front. There'll be some additional wall packs, but
Yes.
very, very limited changes to the site lighting.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Oh, Mark, go ahead.
Just a question on, with this kind of expansion, do you have you worked in some new technologies in the office itself or in the facility?
Yeah, we've tried to stay up to date over time with technology, but there are some incremental changes we're including. A lot of it involves our camera systems that monitor the site, along with, because we park propane-powered vehicles inside, we have a gas detection system that's getting extended to the existing storage facility. We're not required to have that, but we do it just as a safety precaution. So we're kind of incorporating a lot of technology, but the other thing we really took a hard look at is because we serve so many people with disabilities, we kind of over-engineered the building from an accessibility perspective, and Ken and his team, when we hired them as architects, we actually made them experience the building in a wheelchair, in a walker, with crutches, so that they could better understand it from the perspective of the user. So we've taken a lot of extra steps, particularly from an accessibility point of view, to make sure that anyone who interacts with us has the best experience possible from an accessibility standpoint.
Any other questions from the commission members? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion either to approve or deny the site plan.
Approved, please.
I'll second that.
I got a motion to approve the site plan as presented and seconded by John. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Okay, John Everett,
Yes.
Daryl,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
John Hott,
Yes.
and Chairman.
Yes. Site plan has been approved.
Thank you very much. I know how much extra time it is to put in for you guys to review these plans and do this work on behalf of the township. So from Lake Tran, we appreciate all that extra effort you guys take just to review these plans. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Okay. Next on the agenda is, I'll get to it. Public hearing. Public hearing is on case 23001. It's regarding an application for a map amendment. Request proposal to amend the FPUD zoning of 11 parcels, which approximately consists of 378 acres to be developed in a mixed density residential development. Now, the way we're going to do this public hearing, I opened it up. We're going to do it this way. The applicant, when we do public hearings, you go, people who are for the development will speak first, and they will present their development to us. We will ask questions to the applicant as needed. Okay. We will have the staff. The staff will then make a presentation to us. We'll enter into the record. We received a letter from the Lake County Planning Commission, and we'll enter that in. And then after we have that situation done, and that will go to people who are opposed to the project for the rezoning or modification of the zoning of this parcel. You will be given 5 minutes to speak. Ask questions if you have it. If we keep hearing the same reason for being opposed to it, I'll ask you kindly to, if you have another different reason for proposing it, please tell us. If you don't, thank you very much. We've heard it, 2 or 3 times before. So that's how we're going to go with this, because there's a lot of people here who will probably want to say a few words, and that way we can get home at a reasonable time. There's nothing going on. There's no Browns game. There's no Cavaliers game. There's no Guardians game today. Super Bowl was yesterday.
No, there's a Cavs.
Oh, the Guardians game today? Cavs game today? Tip off at 7, huh? I don't know if we're gonna make that, but I would I would love to be able to see the Cavs game, but maybe hopefully the second half. How's that? So anyway, so what we'll do is, one thing I want to say, Charlie, from the staff floor, what exactly are we doing? What is this? What are we rezoning for case?
Okay, so because it is an FPUD district, FPUD is very unique from any standard zoning district. It is considered a rezoning even though the land exists today as an FPUD district, because each FPUD district is so unique unto itself that it is considered its own zoning district. So, for example, our townhomes now here over Richmond, those are FPUD, as is Fairway Pines. What it does is it affords the community the flexibility to permit developments that wouldn't necessarily be permitted otherwise, without creating all new zoning districts each time or applying several blanket districts. So the verbiage is rezoning. However, it can also be called an amendment to the current FPUD zoning. What was previously permitted is not this amendment is not in addition to what was previously permitted. What was previously permitted is no longer on the table. The new application that will be heard here tonight will be the only standards that will be applicable to the property. Anything previously existing will not go into play. So if there are any standards that anyone recalls being previously permitted as a neighbor of the community that they liked, didn't like, you're more than welcome to ask that question of the applicant whether or not that standard will remain. Does that cover it, Mr. Chairman? Are there any questions on what I just said?
Okay, having none, thanks, Harley.
You're welcome, Mr. Chairman.
There'll probably be some more questions as we get going, as we go through. Okay, so the applicant, you have your 5 minutes of fame. Go ahead.
Oh, well, he's.
5 minutes of fame?
Mr. Chairman, we'll get through.
We'll Mr. Okay, one more thing.
Happening.
Please state your name and your address, please, for the record. And applicant, go ahead.
I'm David Hart. I am Senior Advisor Planning Services for CT Consultants. I had my own firm for 35 years in the Northeast Ohio area and then merged with CT Consultants in 2014. I will be the starting speaker, and I'm sure the rest of the team will supplement or modify what I say. Many of you know the project team because they're local people, but let me just make sure everybody knows who is represented here from the development group. In the back right, Bob Busher and Kevin Campany from the Sidley family and organization. And then next to him is Laredo Jr., Iafalise from Laredo Development Company, and then Chuck Sooks from Polaris Engineering. And then in the front row, Art Sidley, Virginia Sidley, and then skipping one, Rob Sidley from the Sidley family, the property owners. And then in between, Laredo Iafalise Sr. and George Davis from GD3 Ventures, and Jenny Howdy Shell from MS Traffic Consultants.
Okay,
Okay?
go ahead, Dave.
By the way, I have worked, I was involved in the rezoning of this land to the FPUD in 2005 when it was approved in the approval of a concept plan. And then I've worked with the Laredo Development Company on several projects over the last 30 years. Let me give you a little bit of history of how we got here and what we're proposing compared to, if I may, what was conceptually approved in 2005. The property was rezoned and we got conceptual approval of a development plan. I say conceptual approval because I'm making a distinction between the detail of a preliminary approval. It was a very broad brush plan. It included 1,400 units of cluster, single family, and townhouses. In addition to that, it permitted 6 units an acre. It had a congregate living area of 10 acres, and it had a retail office area of 18 acres. The reason I want to stress that is because, and I've done it, and the staff report says the same thing, that this is 1,400 units. We were approved for 1,400 units, and we're asking for about 2,000 units. In addition to the 1,400 units, though, we had the congregate living, or the continuing care facility, and we had the 18 acres of commercial offices. So if you add those to it, yes, we are now asking for about 2,000 units, but I think that what we're asking for then and what we're asking for now is pretty equivalent when you look at the development intensity and the impacts. And if I were to turn that 18 acres into units at apartment density, it would be quite a bit. So I take a little umbrage that we're rezoning the land. We think we're asking for a preliminary development plan approval under the current FUPD. And I understand what Harley's saying, that each one is different, but to me it's a preliminary development plan administrative process. So what's the same from 2005 to now? We're developing roughly at the same intensity as we were before. What's different? The zoning was changed, and of course it was tightened up, and some of the regulations became more restrictive. The uses became more limited. The density went down. The open space went up. So we were we're dealing with a different set of regulations now than what was in effect in 2005. But if we were to apply and I think this is the key thing, if we were to apply the 2005 regulations, we'd be down to about 1,000 units. That's the development standards and the uses that are permitted in the lot sizes. That's substantially less than what we were showing in 2005 and what was permitted in 2005. So what's changed since 2005? One, and I think it's a big change, this whole notion of a town center concept. And that's something that's been actually I got a kick out of it at an earlier meeting informally we had with the trustees when they talked about this concept, and I jumped on it and thought that was the coolest thing that I had seen in a long time. And we're moving ahead with that concept based on coming up with a set of a development plan in the town center. It's still a little bit loose, but that is meeting both the township objectives and the development objectives. So that was a unique concept that was added. And of course, you know, in the staff report that the town center concept was part of the township's master plan. So we're implementing something that's been recognized as something needed by the township. What else is new since 2005? One is, I think, or the second thing is, in addition to the town center, that market trends have changed, particularly for larger projects. It is very hard now for a large project like this to respond and limit the development to a very narrow range of residential uses, such as the single family. This is a big project, and it needs more so you can achieve better absorption. You can market it to the full diversity of housing interests that are out there. So that is extremely important to this developer. And then there has been since 2005, and I'll just give you one example, but a dramatic increase in the basic development costs compared to increase in market sales values since 2005. And just taking a standard subdivision street, there's a new street in the development, it went up, doubled since 2005. And yet the market value, based on talking with these fellows and looking at other market studies, has only gone up about 30 or 40%. So all of these things are related to why we're going back to more or less the regulations that were in place in 2005 and asking for the deviations, as the code says, also not a rezoning, to allow us to build the plan that's before us. In addition to the basic road costs have gone up, and I don't have any numbers with this, but the development costs have not included the dedicated collector roads without homes on them. It's going to be a lot wider than a standard collector road with the bike path and the landscaping associated with it, the park, and there will be considerable costs. It's a little bit vague about how this plays out, but there are going to be considerable costs related to the development of the town center and creating the community facilities, the open space, and the commercial development related to that. So since I was involved in this, and just a little over a year ago, we've been working, I think you know, with the trustees on a fairly regular basis to understand from them informally how they're reacting to this, and particularly the town center concept and how we merge those two objectives, their objective and our objective. And we spent time talking to them about the residential portion of the plan, the unit types, the lot sizes, the lot sizes, unit sizes, and the arrangement. So I guess I better. So the plan is at the left-hand side, or the western edge, inside the 18-acre Casement Road, primarily, is to have this town center, which is a combination of community facilities, open space, and unique commercial uses. And we've talked about the commercial uses in the plan. It's not standard retail. This is not downtown Painesville. This is not downtown Willoughby. It's going to be more selective, maybe a restaurant, maybe some galleries and some studios and a boutique hotel or a bed and breakfast and an ice cream shop and things like that would really be attractive. But it's going to be fairly loose density, and we've suggested a cap in here, and subject to working with the township to get it the township wants to put an overlay zoning on this portion. But I think we're all in agreement as to what the parameters of that overlay zoning would be, and we've expressed that in the plan. So we're still up in the air about arrangement. Who does what? Who buys what? Who develops what? But the notion of the concept, I think there's universal agreement on it, and clearly it's a lower intensity development than a standard commercial, so we keep it as a unique gathering space and supplements the open spaces we have in the basic part of the project. Then as we go farther to the east, the outside the loop, we have higher density residential, the highest density residential in the project. Don't be sold on this plan. This is one illustration. We've got, in the application, we showed 3 illustrations, 2 that were done by the private side and 1 that was done by the township side. But this gives you an understanding of how outside the loop we have this higher density residential, maybe some congregate living, assisted living, nursing, and maybe some other community facility, nonprofit facilities. But that's the concept. What we're showing in there now is basically higher density residential. That's good for the development. That's good for the township. It's good for marketing and helping to market the concept of the town center. And then when we go farther east, it's all single family residential, maybe some cluster residential, and some townhouses. Just kind of right there, a little bit off the theme I've been dwelling at, but we know that the township wants a variety of housing elevations and looks inside the each of the pods in the residential area. So we know we have that requirement, and when we come back for final plan approval, and by the way, we know we have to come back. There was one of the minutes, do they have to come back? We know we have to come back for final approval of every pod and every development in this project. So a lot of the stuff we're asking for details, we're asking to be deferred, get the preliminary development plan approved, and then we'll come back with the details, including the variety of housing styles and elevations that would be in each one of the pods. The residential, single family now and the 2-family, mostly complies with the required single family lot width, with one exception on the downside, and that would be 55-foot lots if we're going to put in 1-story single family homes, only in that case. And I know there's a concern that, well, that'll look funny if you're dotting the subdivision, you're going to go 1- and 2-story all over the place. Well, you wouldn't do that. You would have an area of 55-foot lots, single family homes, and then you'd have an area of 60-foot lots with the 1-story homes, and then 60-foot lots with 2-story homes. And then as we get down into the south area border and the east border, we have larger lots, generally 70 feet wide along the southern border, and then 75 feet wide at Belmore, right adjacent to the Belmore homes, and 75 feet wide all along the east side, going all the way north to that area. So mostly 60s, but we're sensitive to the adjacent residential and making them larger in those locations. As I mentioned, the collector road will have no units on it. It'll be, all the units will be off to the side. The open space includes paths, a park, which is in the north kind of east area of the site, in the town center, which is a big component. And the open space requirement when we got the rezoning was 15% when the site was rezoned, and we're proposing 17%. We know that's short of the 20%, but I think in many respects, the uniqueness of the town center is a unique gathering place, is more beneficial open space than just passive green space. And the applicant, to advance the town center, the applicant has agreed that they will terminate within the casement circle. They will terminate all construction activities in there, the building center, at the time 200 units in phase one are occupied. And that's normal that you bring open space online in phases and you don't do it all at once. And this center is a great convenience to the developer, and it's a great convenience for future contractors to come in there to have that for a while. But we know that there has to be a time when we take the step to make the first transformation of this area to make it look as an open space and begin to feel like a town center. So we're willing to commit to that with 200 units occupied, which would be not quite through the end of phase one. Now, just in terms of phasing, we're going to start coming from the northwest, and basically these are not construction projects. These are broad phases. There will be many more construction projects, but looking at pods A, B, and C, and then the extension of the east-west road probably to the townhouse, the area in the center of the site, and then stopping it, and building out pods A, B, and C. Phase two would be the rest of the road going all the way out to Bohall, and then obviously moving from west to east, and the rest of the single-family townhouse developments on both north and south of the collector road. And then the third phase gets down to this E, F, and G areas. Now, the road connections on the plan show connections to Bohall, Madison, and we have a commitment from the property owner to the south that connection from the southern property line down to Madison can be provided at the time that Pod E is developed, and that's down the road. So we have connections to Bohall, Madison, Belmore, and Foxfire illustrated on that plan. My understanding is that the general concept was informally approved by the Lake County Planning Commission a couple of weeks ago. They say it was informal because it wasn't a rezoning and it didn't have to go to them. So anyway, that's the issue of whether it's a rezoning or not. But they approved it, the plan, and they approved it. As part of that approval, they approved the density. And they also asked for the possibility of taking the Sidley land to the west of the property line that's been zoned to the FPUD and having that rezoned to the PUD as well, and including that in the project, and then using much of that land, much of it, not all of it, because some of it's developable, using much of that land as added open space to the project. And I think the Sidley, we just found out about this today, and I think the Sidley family is generally agreeing to this. The connections other than at Casement, either ends of Casement, are down the road. And we can say, based on expected absorption, that it's probably in a 10-year plus or minus range before we get there. So it'll be a while if they go through, and if they're determined to be needed, those connections, that would take place. Just one more comment before I introduce or have Jennifer Howdyshell talk about the preliminary traffic analysis that was done. We know from a traffic assessment that we're going to need more details. We know that. We would like to do the traffic studies as development occurs in detail at the time of the final development plan for those streets that are impacted by that phase of development. And then when we get to the extension of the road out to Bohall, we would do the detailed traffic study. We think that that's better use of the time because you'll have more reliable information at that time than just a little hemming and hawing. And then,
David, excuse
yeah.
me for a minute. Question. So what you're telling us is that on the traffic study, impacts of the development, each major phase, it will be a detailed. We have to come. You have to come back.
Yes.
So that's going to be a detailed study, a detailed traffic study, for each phase.
Yes.
So before you can even build phase 2, say, or phase 1, we got to have that detailed study approved by the county and the county engineer's office.
That's what we're. I think Jennifer agrees with that. That's what we're proposing.
Okay. I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
I'm just,
And
I'm just asking for clarification.
yeah,
Just wanna
and
do
the
it.
first phase, we know that we will do that before we come in with final development plan approval for phase 1.
Correct.
Because our view is that the detailed traffic study doesn't affect what we do. It affects what we have to improve off the site.
Correct.
And so we want to get confident that we're basing our detailed studies on a plan that's actually been approved.
And I understand completely, Dave. I just want to make sure.
Okay, yeah. With that, I'll let, and we know the issue of traffic is going to come up. We know it's going to come up. So rather than having Jennifer respond to questions, we think it's better to have her set the context rather than the questions going all over the place, if that's all right.
Yeah. In the general terms, Jennifer, because I think this is this is for rezoning. This is not for actual site plan, detailed traffic study. Can build here, what we're going to build. So.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Howdyshaw. I'm with MS Consultants, based in Columbus. As David said, we did do this initial traffic study. We didn't do any traffic counts. We just used existing counts from WARPC or from NOACA or other sources of data. We also did an initial trip generation based on the current site plan. Again, knowing that things are going to change, things are going to shift, but kind of coming up with some trips that we think this town center would have and all of the residential. So that was showing about 16,000 daily trips, which would be about 1,500 trips in a peak hour. This study was looking at kind of the impact of having various connections to the adjacent streets to the site. We kind of looked at one scenario where we didn't have any connections, and then we looked at another scenario with those connections to kind of see what the difference of that was. There really wasn't a huge traffic difference between the two scenarios, so kind of keeping in mind of what connections we do or don't want in the future. I don't think that's going to change the traffic conditions too much. Again, this was just a very initial traffic study. We were more looking at daily traffic versus the peak hours. So in terms of very specific improvements to the road, that's something that we'll have to do further down the line once we get into doing a more detailed study. But based on this initial study, we don't think that there's any like major widening that has to happen. You know, any road needs to go from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. There's just not enough traffic from this site that is going to require that based on the initial study. And that's kind of it. I mean, again, this was a very preliminary study.
Well, again, for the audience too, is the fact is that yes, traffic is going to be a component of this development, besides the housing and the town center, the impacts to the surrounding area. Most of it is going to be the Lake County Engineers office's roadways.
Absolutely.
Will probably be impacted the most. There'll be some local streets. So basically, even though with this development and the proposed rezoning, the applicant's still gonna have to come back before they even start building each of the phases to find out from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3 and then phase 4. There is a phase 4 to find out what the impact going to be of that non-built phase first, to find out what needs to be constructed on the adjacent roadways, not the internal, but the adjacent roadways. Being already the people are traveling on a roadway all the time. I live only about a mile and a half from this development, so I travel this road area pretty well, most of my trips into Paynesville. I drive this, so even though it's preliminary, even though you say it's not that much going to be impacted, the real impact is going to be known when you start doing actual counts know what density you're going to actually use. As Dave said in the previous thing, you're going to be, tweaking this thing as you are moving along at different phases, and that traffic study is going to be based upon that concept you're going to be presenting to the township and the county, because the county ultimately has the final say on what needs to be done and what would be built. So even though we have a recommendation, there is some of that. Okay, just want to make everybody aware of that. So it's not like this. If this rezoning gets approved, there's going to be nothing at all happening on Bohall, Madison Avenue, or Casement possibility. That's not going to because we don't have control of that. The Lake County Planning Commission has control of what needs to be built, and what needs to be constructed on our county roadway system. So I just want to make everybody aware of that. If this thing gets approved, rezoned wise, there's still many approvals not need to be made, and the developer is up to them to prove to the county and the planning commission what needs to be done and not done. So I just want to make clear that to everybody. It's not like, okay,
I just want to make sure everybody knows we know that, and we're
Yeah.
prepared for that.
Right.
We know that. Let me just make one more comment about what Jennifer's talked about. We spent quite a bit of time on the phone coming up with traffic generation for the town center, because these are unique uses. They're not in the traffic manual. And so we went back and forth and came up with a blended number within that 18-acre area. And I believe we did it conservatively high.
We also didn't, at this time, we didn't take into account any really internal traffic. I hope that a lot of the people who live in these neighborhoods are going to be using the town center, and we haven't taken any trips off of that.
and we understand that. So like I said, it's just a matter of the concept wise, for this project, how it's going to impact the surrounding existing infrastructure. We don't know yet what that's going to be, and they can't build a lot. They can't build anything. They can't get anything approved until the county engineer, the Lake County Planning Commission, approves the traffic study and the phase 1 or phase 2, phase 3 development concept. Thank you. Anybody else from the developer?
No, I think you just summarized what I was going to say. We know we have detailed things to do. This is a unique project. We're really working with the township and committed to working with the township to make this work. And we're looking forward to preliminary development plan approval.
Okay.
Ted,
Good. Daryl?
do we have to wait to bring up some design situations as a board?
Yeah.
Can I bring up some questions now, or do we have to wait till later?
I'll tell you what.
Now wait till later. That's no problem.
Okay, tell you what we'll do. Well, here's what we'll do. It's 7:15 right now. I know a few of you in the back have comments about the development. So what we'll do is we will have 5 minutes apiece. You come up, state your name, because the Cavs have started right now. They're in the first quarter still. So what I'm trying to say is this. Keep your comments for, I understand. So 5 minutes. If we have here recurring reasons why this is not, this is a no, then we'll ask you to, have another reason why it's no. That's fine. All right. So when you come up,
Mr. Chairman.
please state your name and address.
Mr. Chairman, I'm so sorry to ask this of you, but may I make a few statements prior to?
No. before we have the audience who's against this, and I now Alzheimer's is kicking in now. I forgot. I mentioned before Then we're going to have the developer talk first, which they're done. And I said staff would go second. So I'm going to yield to the staff right now. Then I will yield to the. Then after that, we get a chance to ask questions to everybody. Go ahead, Harley. I apologize.
No, that's all right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just wanted to make a few comments prior to the public making theirs. There's a couple things that are important to know. FPUD district is it's a permitted zoning district within our zoning resolution. Should the property owner choose to develop it exactly as we require in our zoning resolution, they would be entitled to that approval. Now, per our zoning resolution, we permit 60-foot wide lots as the minimum. So the developer could have chosen to do 60-foot wide lots throughout the entire development. But they did make some adjustments per trustee request to widen them where they meet the current R1 residential zoning. In addition, we permit 4 units per acre in our FPUD district. There is approximately 380 acres here. Doing that multiplication, we're looking at approximately 1,500 units, which would be permitted. Then we also have to take into account open space, of course, which open space could include the 35-foot buffer. Now, the 35-foot buffer that is typically required was removed, and that was the removal of that buffer. It for the most part, we're looking at backyards abutting backyards. What we have noticed is when the 35-foot buffer exists, it usually becomes a dumping site.
Just what is the buffer around? Just to clarify.
So what we require is a 35-foot buffer in our FPUD district as it's written. We require a 35-foot buffer between the FPUD property and adjacent R1 property. This request removes that buffer. And as I was saying, what we've typically noticed is that the 35-foot buffer becomes a dumping site for people and their grass clippings. It creates vermin issues. And so in this instance, especially when it's a backyard abutting a backyard, the trustees in their initial discussions with the development team thought that it would be a good idea to remove it. So those are a couple of the deviations that we're looking at. We're looking at deviations in density, but where the development team has decreased density to the south to better merge with existing neighborhoods, they're asking for an increase to the north, which abuts the railroad property. In addition to all of this, we're looking at the town center. When Casement was diverted, it created an island in the property that wasn't previously in existence. At the initial meetings with the development team, there was a question as to what that could be utilized for. And during that meeting, it was mentioned that per our comprehensive plan, which is a document that's created by our residents, essentially, in conjunction with Painesville Township Zoning, the Lake County Planning Commission, it was discovered at the time of the creation of this comprehensive plan, I believe it's our 2017 comprehensive plan, that the general consensus from the residents was that there's no sense of place. There's no gathering place. There's no identity to Painesville Township. When you think of Painesville Township, you think of my house is there. I don't know much about it otherwise. And so to foster a sense of pride and community, the general consensus from the residents was we needed a gathering space. We needed something like that. The residents wanted something like that. And so during the discussion about town center, or about within the new loop that was created by the division of Casement, the potential for utilizing that space for town center to benefit the community. And luckily, the developer embraced that idea for the community, which is a big factor in consideration on the township side of things. So those are just a couple things to note and to have on hand prior to asking your questions. If there's any additional concerns that I haven't met, please feel free to ask. That is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. One more thing I gotta do, I said I would do too. Also, we received a letter from the Lake County Planning Commission. And I'll just read you the highlights of what this letter said, and I will enter that, I'll enter that into the record in a minute of this public hearing. Lake County Planning Commission took under consideration the above amendment at the regular meeting on January 31st. Lake County Planning Commission recommends the modification to the FPUD with deviation density of 5.4 units per acre, allow the additional zoning uses other than single family as requested, and allow variable lot sizes. They also reminded us that all we can do as a township is recommend to the Planning Commission the road scheme, and however, the Lake County, by the Lake County subdivision regulations, the roads, the road geometry, the distance between intersections, etc., are covered by the Lake County Planning Commission. All we can do as a township recommend to the Planning Commission what we would like to see. They, Lake County Planning Commission, makes the final decision.
Yes.
On what streets get interconnected, what the connection is, say on the road going down into the South Road going to Madison Avenue, the east-west connector between Bohall and West Haseman and Bohall, and also some of the interconnections with some of the local streets and how that would be done. So we don't have that say. I want to make sure. So this is entered into the yes.
I just wanted to add on to your point. So during initial discussions and meetings, informal discussions and meetings with the trustees and with Dave Rodacci, who's the director of the Lake County Planning Commission, the trustees initially, the conversation of inter-road connections came up, and the trustees were definitely against potentially negatively impacting the adjacent neighborhoods. And the development team at one time did propose 0 connections to adjacent roads. There would be no connection there was at one time no connection to Foxfire proposed, no connection to Belmore proposed, and that was it. And then it came up that would be considered dangerous to the residents of the new development. That there would only be one way in, one way out, and per Lake County subdivision regulations, all of the connections have to be made. For every connection not being made, the development team has to apply for a variance with the Lake County Planning Commission. So the fact that Grove, Branch, and Dalton are not being connected, that is a variance request to the Lake County Planning Commission. Ultimately, having the 2 roads connect, which is Belmore and Foxfire, was chosen because those roads were built with that intention and with the load capacity at the time that those roads were developed, with the understanding that the Sidley property could potentially be developed in the future. So the development team, the trustees ultimately we ultimately don't have control over those road connections, and so the connections and the traffic flow of the site was done with the adjacent communities and those interconnections in mind.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're going to open up the people who are, okay, anybody else in the audience besides the development team that Mr. Hart introduced wants to speak for the development.
Did you want to finish reading this here?
Yeah, I wrote that. having heard none, now people who are against the rezoning, please, here's your time now. You have 5 minutes to make your case. Please state your name, your address, and please proceed. So go ahead, sir. If you want to make a statement,
Mike,
go
please
ahead.
come up to the mic.
Please come to the mic.
I'm gonna go. He's my grandfather.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
You're more than welcome to.
Thanks, sir.
I am Richard G. Catalyst Sr. And my address is 61 Bull Hall Road, Painesville Township. And I'm here with my grandson. And we operate Catalyst Nursery. I'm sorry about my voice, but I kind of lost it
Don't worry about it.
last couple days.
Take your time.
My residence is 61 Bull Hall Road. My house is the fourth house back from Madison Avenue. I have been here since 1966. That's 57 years. Foxfire was a cornfield when I came here. A part of my nursery is behind my home, and the other part is down the street. I have a wholesale plant nursery at 365 Bull Hall Road. At both addresses, I am adjacent to properties, Sidley's properties. And my total acreage is about 50 acres on the west side of Bull Hall Road. The concern I have, and at the perimeter of my nursery, it's about a mile. I am adjacent to Sidley's property. Question is, like our nursery side of the property will stay as is, but on Sidley's side of the property, how close any buildings might be, any road construction might be, any sidewalks might be, or any other construction improvements.
I'll give you the answer.
Thank you, sir.
So the let me pause this. Wherever it is. This is your property here, sir, correct? All of this?
That's correct.
And
he is down on in the hayfield to the south.
Okay, so down here?
Yes.
Approximately. We're maintaining a 0-foot setback, correct? Is what's being proposed currently, right? For the parcels. George, Dave.
You mean the rear yard pins?
Yes.
So the rear yard pins for the lot would be.
So it would be a shared. So you would share parcel boundary lines with the private properties. There is road construction proposed just here. That is a requirement of the Lake County subdivision regulations. Because if for whatever reason you chose to sell your property or develop your property, there has to be access for interconnectivity. So that would be a requirement there. So there would be a road that dead ended.
We have a few of those.
Yeah. So that would be another. Oh yeah, you have these here. And then these would also, the townhomes would also share property pins. And then you would have this section of roadway, but that would be a sidewalk through here.
How close will the structures be to the property on the north there?
On the north,
Based on
that's a good question. It depends on what type of units. At this time, it states townhomes, but that could be townhomes, connected townhomes. It could be single-story detached
things could change
condominium
as this
type.
project
Yeah.
progresses.
So, yeah, as this is developed, they'll have a better idea of what type of dwelling unit would be there, and a better.
And Harley, won't there be a setback?
Yes.
There'll be
So
a,
Rear yard setback.
there'll be a setback
What is the setback?
Our required setback would be it's 25 feet for the the rear yard setback
Okay.
as it sits.
So you're saying
I
that structure would be 25 feet off the property?
I don't I
On the townhomes, potentially we could be 25 feet. On the single family, I think the rear yard is 50, correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Typically, in a single-family home, the back of the home, there aren't gonna be any, detached garages. The back of the home typically doesn't go more than 50% of the depth of the lot.
Right.
By the time you get a front setback,
Right.
yeah.
and the depth of the home of 40 feet, you're gonna be at about 60 or 70. These are all.
So could
We have lots of neighbors already
Yeah.
that we have to deal with, and we're fine with that. We're happy about everything.
Okay, that'll be the same type of setback.
Okay. And but when you mentioned refuge being dumped without the buffer, that is not true. They dump anyways.
well, especially onto the nursery land.
Yes, they do.
Any other questions, sir?
You had one more, didn't you? I think we're good. I think we covered things. He had two primary
Okay.
questions. You good?
I don't understand exactly the, what do you call it, that, what is it, Richie?
Talking about all the information. We've been struggling a little bit to kind of bring ourselves up to speed with this.
The buffer, you talked about the buffer here, I don't understand that, and I don't wanna take any more time tonight, but
I would be glad to explain it. So what we typically require is a strip of land 35 feet wide to encompass the entire border of the property. And there would be, that would essentially be HOA owned land. It would be common space. It would not be privately owned by the private property owners for the fee simple lots. It would be a 35-foot buffer that's owned and maintained by the HOA. Is typically.
does that apply here, or it does not apply?
So it would normally apply. What is being requested is the removal of that required 35-foot buffer. So it could, but in this case, they are not showing the 35-foot buffer, and that's a part of the application that's being considered.
I might add that it was replacing other areas of green space.
The buffer
Buffer, you're saying that there was better use for.
for the green space. Yeah.
We like it by our property, if you don't mind.
It sounds like one of your concerns is because the buildings are gonna be so close to the property line,
Yes.
the construction vehicles are gonna go over the property.
Not. We're just concerned about how close are they going to be. We're trying to plan to make adjustments, and coexist neighborly.
I think we can work on the buffer. I think, George, we can work on the buffer, can't we?
I think,
We're gonna buffer.
We can work on that buffer.
When I said about the single family, it's probably true. They'll be farther, away from the property line than the minimum setback. You can come up with a number for the townhouses.
And like I said, we'll have to watch the townhouse, get some green space between the property line and the building line. We can do that.
well, yeah, so, we're not proposing the old standard condos, right? These are townhomes, so, they each have a fee simple parcel, but yeah, you're correct. The house doesn't go to the back of the parcel. And then in the townhome community, that rear yard there's an overlay for common area, for
So
rear
what-
yard landscape.
When anyone speaks, if you guys can go to the microphone. So
with
you're heard.
the townhouse, how close might it be to the property line?
So there's a lot, there's a lot of unknowns.
Give your name.
This is George Davis, one of the developers, George Davis, GD3 Ventures. There's, that's phase 2, right? That's going to be after we finish pods A, B, and C and those townhomes there, then we would move past. So there's some time that's going to pass, right? It could be detached townhomes, it could be attached townhomes, but regardless, there's going to be a rear yard and we'd have to meet the standard rear yard setbacks for condos and townhomes.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wanting to speak? Sir, I don't care who's up. Whoever wants to go.
How you doing? My name's Rich Zabivnik, and this is my wife Kay. We live at 88 Whitmore Court. My family's owned that property since 2003 when it was first built. They were told that behind there, that wooded area, and nothing behind it would ever be developed on, is what they were told as a selling point. Okay, which obviously was a lie. I understand you're going to try to do something here, but as having a zero buffer zone back there, we believe that there should be some kind of privacy fence or natural fence put up so we can have our privacy. We don't, I mean, having somebody we've been living there for years with nothing. Now all of a sudden it's going to be someone right in our backyard.
So we understand that, you know, they have their green space and everything, but if they could put up or even plant trees or something, a natural buffer that they could put in there from that person's backyard to our backyard. We have spent over $70,000 this summer making our backyard into this amazing oasis, and now there's the possibility of people being able to just walk through in the future from their backyard to our backyard, and we just don't want that, I guess.
What you're looking for is some green, some
separation.
Some separation. And I think that I think we can. When we go to the site plan, we might be able to work something out. I can't guarantee it, but I know we're going to be working on a green. There's going to be a green space between the property line and the buildings. There's definitely going to be a green space.
Right. So
right. The question is going to be is, and I think that's going to be developed as the project goes forward.
Right.
And
no,
what
I
your
understand
concern
that, yes.
basically is to have as much green and separation between your existing homes and what's being proposed in development. Correct?
Yeah, the separation. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay.
I'd like to refer to that as a little bit of privacy.
Like a privacy fence, or even if it's a natural privacy fence, you know, trees, something that they put up to separate that person's new backyard from our
just walking
backyard.
right into our property, you know.
Okay. Any other?
No, I think that's it.
That it?
And you're saying that area of Whitmore Court is
those are
going to be the last phase of your.
Yeah.
Podgy.
And you're saying that's not going to happen for 10
How long?
years?
10 years. Okay.
Based on marking.
And those are going to be the larger lots, the 70-foot lots.
I'd say stay tuned.
Okay.
Keep an eye on what's going on.
All right, thank you.
Anything else?
Nope, that was it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak?
Okay, I just basically, I'm sorry, Nancy Marshchak, 62 Bow Hall Road.
Mike Morschak,
Um,
same address.
I just have two questions. As I understand from Jennifer, okay, that you never did a real study of the actual traffic in the area, actually counting, correct? That is, that's what I'm understanding. Okay, and as each pod is developed and you look at the traffic situation, then the county would make a recommendation, so technically maybe roads could be widened. I'm trying to think. I'm very, very confused because I see this as, well, we may have this type of a townhome and we may not, and we may. I'm as a resident for, well, how long have we been married? 52 years. I as a citizen, I'm very confused as to actually what's going up here. Do you understand my questions? And I have another question. This would be of the developer. Is this going to be an HOA?
First of all, what the plan that's being approved is our maximum. allowance. And we know that there may be some coming down from that because of market or because of engineering and so forth. So to say we aren't giving, but we know there's flexibility as we go from preliminary plans to the final plans. That's what. Now, as far as an HOA, yes, there will be an HOA, and I believe that some of these units, probably the townhouses, will be in 2 HOAs because they'll have an HOA as the umbrella, and then they'll have an HOA for maintenance of the private streets in their development. So yes, there will be HOAs over this whole thing. Not necessarily the same management system in the town center that there is in the residential.
Thank you. Now, another question. So in the HOAs repairs the roads if they get bad, correct? That's their responsibility. That's why they're an HOA.
Well, let's be careful because the single-family streets and the collector streets will be public streets. The townhouses will be private streets. There will be management and HOA responsibility for open spaces and if there are any community facilities and things like that. But the streets will be public streets. I'm right.
And these would be part of the township?
Yes.
Or the county?
Township.
Township.
I believe the connector between Bohol and Madison, that has to be a county road. We've talked about that in our meetings.
That'll be up for discussion when that is built. Because that'll be up for discussion when that's built. The property, the homeowners, like you and I live in Waynesville Township. We pay property taxes. Part of our property taxes goes to the Painesville Township Road Department to maintain the roads. So the taxes that the people who live in these homes are going to be used to help maintain these roads. Developers will build them, but the township will maintain. Or if that's a county road, the county will maintain that one road. Yes, sir.
Our taxes will go up to improve those, keep those roads up.
The taxes are basically.
No, it's an increase of number of roads that are out there. That's
going to be up to. I can't tell you that. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you no. That's up to the township trustees.
Okay.
And the voters.
I'll take care of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
I do have a question.
Go right ahead.
You missed out a great opportunity to count cars. When Madison Avenue was closed off, customarily every day traffic was backed up from Madison Avenue way past Foxfire, almost to the fire station. We could not get out of our driveway. And this is why I'm afraid of the saturation on Casement is going to cause that kind of traffic again. We've got semis. I've been trying to get this to stop. We get semis coming down there all the time. And one of the biggest things I'm concerned about is transporting of gasoline through a residential area is illegal. I will give you the book showing it's illegal. You cannot transport a gasoline fuel truck through a residential area.
I understand that, sir. I can't, and we can't.
They go up, all right. They're going up and down Bohol Road constantly. The problem that we have on Bohol Road, the biggest thing, is the railroad tracks at one end and Madison Avenue on the other end. With the amount of people coming out by Dick Catalyst's driveway, right by Stropke's is a hill.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be very interesting. You ever try getting out of there at any time? I have. And they come flying over that hill. We get stock cars being driven down there to the stock car track on the road. We have got motorcycles drag racing down through there. We have stripes put on our road that are incorrect. In front of our house, you go to the full length of Bohol Road, they're double striped until they get to our property. And they have you can pass going in both directions. I've been trying to address that with the engineer. She will not give me any audience. And I really appreciate that.
Okay. Sir, I'm going to tell you this.
Yes, sir.
The Lake County Planning Commission
yes.
It will not approve the connection on Bohol. It will not approve any of the development in that area until the concerns of what the impacts are to Bohol, what the impact is to Madison, what the impact is to Casement and Bohol. So yes, right now it looks like by approving this, it doesn't mean that there's going to be no improvements at all to the local street system. Some of your concerns is existing. I understand that, but as far as this case is concerned, for the approval of the rezoning of the preliminary development that site that's being presented tonight, those concerns you have about the new road, new intersection on Casement, new intersection at Bohol Madison intersection,
Foxfire's another one.
Foxfire, that'll be addressed when Modern Siracus or whoever the team uses, they would like to have that, they like to have it, will when they ask, I've done those things before. That will they'll take care of that. That'll be taken care of at that time.
They need to also take into account the development that's behind us.
Yes.
That you should see them come out there in the morning.
I understand.
Screaming.
Like I said, sir, your concerns will not be addressed here.
Make sure you count those cars. Physically stand there. And when you have, I have been running across the road I deliver the mail to my neighbor every morning and his newspaper. Mm-hmm. I have a flashlight in both hands, waving at the cars, trying to get them to slow down as I run across the street.
Like I said, sir, I understand your concern.
Oh, I'm concerned.
But I understand that. But I'm trying to say to you is those concerns will be dealt with later on in the detailed design, detailed phase of this project.
I just asking you, don't forget it.
You won't.
I'm afraid of that.
Don't be.
Okay, thank you.
Ted,
Daryl?
be aware that there is a verbatim minutes being taken.
I'm sorry?
And verbatim minutes are being taken, and your comments will be put in that.
I appreciate
so
that.
they become a part of the township record.
I'm not the only one that's concerned about that. We have a lot of young kids. I've gone out in front, and the kids have been walking on the road, and I tell them, get the heck off the road where I walk across my yard.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I own 3 lots there.
Yes.
And I have them walk the whole time, even riding their bikes. I don't want them on that road.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else who wants to speak at this present time?
Can I speak one more time on my own?
Go ahead.
My name is Richard Catala III. I'm a 5th generation farmer. I love what I do. I'm a little emotional because I'm nervous. I'm just concerned, like anything else, that, and by the way, I'm not against Sidley, because you guys were putting people against or for neighborly. I'm just concerned, and I understand that when we're presenting things that we want in life, like a Christmas list, per se, we put everything on there that we want. And at one point, Santa Claus comes or whatever, and he brings us something that we asked for, as they're presenting to you, to the county, and to the residents here. And we're just hoping that you guys take and consider the spirit of Painesville Township when you guys discuss what's going to happen, and you keep that in lieu with our, our morals.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, man, go for the stars. Ask if you can't get it if you don't ask for it. But I'm just hoping that we all meet happily in the middle somewhere. We all stay neighborly.
Mm-hmm.
Hope there's not traffic, because it is difficult on Bohol, especially we move slow moving vehicles up there.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult sometimes.
I understand, sir.
So I just want to express my opinions too. Thank you guys, ma'am, everybody.
Thank you very
guests.
much for your concern.
Thank you.
Anybody else? If not, what I'm going to do now is go to the commission members. We may have questions to the developer, but before I do that, I got a young lady to my right. Go ahead, Harley.
I have a letter from a resident. She asked that it be read into record. This would be the letter that I forwarded to you.
Yes.
So this is a letter written by Karen Breedlove. She lives at 1105 Dalton Drive. She was unable to be present this evening, and so she wrote a letter for the Zoning Commission to consider and requested that it be read into record. It is addressed February 12th, 2023, Painesville Township Zoning Commission, Painesville Township Trustees regarding 2023-0001ZC map amendment for approximately 378 acres of land to be developed into mixed-density residential development. Let me begin by saying I am not opposed to development in the township, nor am I against or opposed to the Sidley family developing land which they own. I am concerned, however, that a development of this size and scope will forever change the township and must be undertaken with thought and consideration beyond immediate monetary gain. As written, the proposal projects 1,623 dwelling units plus an additional 200 beds in assisted living. Given that a square mile contains 640 acres, the project of 378 acres encompasses roughly 0.6 square miles. With a conservative estimate of 2 people per dwelling unit, then 3,246 people would reside in the development, excluding those in assisted living and not counting any commercial or retail. This would result in a population density that more than doubles that of Mentor at 1,710 per square mile. To help place this in perspective, according to the most recent census data, Grand River Village encompasses 401 acres and has a population density of 671 people per square mile. The proposed development would be almost the size of Grand River Village with double the population density of Mentor. This leads to the next level of concerns. How will our EMS and fire service be able to accommodate such an increase in service? Combined with the assisted living facility, it stands to reason that calls for assistance will increase, putting additional strain on our sheriff, fire, and rescue resources. How will the number of new students be absorbed into Riverside local schools when the district and taxpayers are still paying for our current buildings and have a large renovation replacement looming on the horizon for the main Riverside campus? What about our township road crew and maintenance department? Who will maintain the proposed green spaces, bike walking paths, and community center, and at what cost? What types of commercial entities are already on board and have committed to renting, buying space and storefronts, or are they being built with a build it and they will come mentality? It would be assumed that a project of this size and scope will draw the attention of national builders. While I realize time is money, I would ask that the Sidleys in the township evaluate the aesthetics, quality, and appearance of those types of homogeneous developments. As a licensed realtor, I have first-hand experience with production-built homes. I would encourage that local builders be allocated a percentage of lots for development. Perhaps lots that adjoin existing neighborhoods could be reserved and sold to local builders. After all, it is those builders who helped the Sidley family make a living. It is those builders who bought local Sidley gravel, block, cement, and stone that went into so many of our existing homes and businesses. Finally, I question how the proposed community will be connected into existing neighborhoods. It appears that a road will run from Casement through to Bohall, another road from the development to Madison Avenue at Belmore and near the Riverside Drive intersection. A final link appears to be at Foxfire. It is my understanding that Belmore was constructed as a connecting street and the original homeowners were informed of that possibility. The Sidley family is proposing a connection at the former home of Bob and Polly. I would ask that the board reconsider connecting into other existing neighborhoods. The streets of Foxfire, Dalton, Grove, and Branch should not be connecting roads. The majority of them are narrow, simply blacktop or tar and chip, and have no sidewalks or curbs. These are neighborhoods where children ride their bikes in the street, neighbors walk their dogs, jog, and rollerblade. Many conversations are held at ends of driveways and at mailboxes. To connect these streets to such a high-density community will destroy these neighborhoods by turning their quiet roads into thoroughfares, which will make the streets unsafe for their residents and decrease their property values. Where the development adjoins existing neighborhoods, I would like clarification on lot sizes and if a buffer will be maintained. No existing home in an established neighborhood should be forced to view a new backyard from their existing front or side yard. We all know where folks toss old bikes, tires, garden stakes, etc., behind the shed at the back of the lot. Homeowners in existing homes should have a buffer or evergreen privacy line to maintain the integrity of their home values and privacy. New development lots adjoining existing homes should have the same frontage or larger as the existing lot. I find it very disturbing that a project of this scope has received no publicity. Why is that? If this project can be for the benefit and good of the township, why don't township residents, and more importantly residents whose home values and standard of living will be impacted, know anything about it? In my neighborhood, there are 53 homes. Of those, 47 have the possibility of living on a connecting through street. Only 7 homeowners were sent letters. The township has a Facebook page, website, and newsletter. At no point did any hint of this proposed development see the public light. However, there are half a dozen posts and newsletters mentioning of the upcoming St. Patrick's Day parade. It was only after contacting Mr. Hillier and Mr. Pennock that a Facebook announcement of the meeting for February 13th was made. Despite 2 attempts to speak with him, Mr. Cicconetti has failed to return my calls. My husband and I have lived in our home at 1105 Dalton Drive for over 40 years. I am a lifelong resident of the Madison Avenue area and as a realtor also have a vested interest in our wonderful community. I ask that the zoning board, trustees, Sidleys, and others involved in this project proceed with caution, careful planning, and keep in mind that their decisions will effectively forever change not only the lifestyles and home values of the immediate neighbors of this proposed development, but also our community. Whether that is a detrimental change or a positive change accomplished through foresight and thought remains to be seen. I am on a long-planned vacation and regret that I cannot attend this important meeting in person. Thank you for taking my letter into consideration. Best regards, Karen Breedlove.
Okay. Thank you very much for that letter. It's in the minutes. So at this point in time, what we're going to do now is the commission members will ask questions of the developer, so we can get some understanding of what we're doing tonight. So I will yield to Daryl.
Okay, a couple of things I have. I worked for the Lake County Planning Commission for 44 years. I processed the subdivision Foxfire myself personally as staff. And also has something to do with Belmore and the other one next to it here. Can't read this with the dots on it. I know that when this was originally brought in, we had agreed that Grove Avenue would not be extended because the pavement was not sufficient and the right-of-way was not sufficient. So basically, that one's okay. But I do notice that there are a couple of roads that show them extending over your property line. I'm wondering why this is. They should end at the property line, not extend over it. There's some geometric problems that I see here that I'm concerned about. I'm probably stepping out of my bounds as a zoning board, but I have to be honest with you. It's hard to keep your planning commission hat off. There's a couple of turns in Pod E, the one that turns almost a right angle. I mean, it has got a swept turn to it, but that's still a right angle turn. I know that that's something the planning commission will take into account, but that is concerned to me. I'm also concerned with the one that goes into Belmore. That's a right angle turn, and it creates a hazard as far as I'm concerned. I'm not sure if any agreements were ever reached about extending up Dalton Drive, but I think that wasn't supposed to be extended either. Was the final agreements on that one. There are a number of block distances, things of this nature, which I'm not going to get into because that's planning commission jurisdiction. I do want to know this. You have open space. Is there going to be a homeowners association that covers each of them, all of it, or what? If it is, then we have somebody that needs to maintain these buffered areas next to the existing owners. Because if you leave it to the adjacent property owners, they're not going to do much with it. So there has to be some overriding authority that can say, look, you need to do this or do that. Pine trees grow. Over time, the lower limbs die and they get cut off. So while you might have that now down the road 20, 30 years from now, those limbs will be gone. I know because I've worked with that. So these are some things to take into account. I would have liked to know where the assisted living and nursing home facilities were going to be, but I guess that's got to be determined yet. So I like that idea because I used one over next to Menor in the subdivision there not too long ago after an accident. Actually not an accident. I have a problem with retaining too much water. Afterwards I needed some rehab, so I went there. Those kind of facilities here are nice. They do make a nice addition to a community if they're done right. And there are some nice facilities around. I think they call it one Grand River or something. And there's one in Concord. It's an industrial park though. But it's a very nice facility. If things along this line are done, I think they'll add to the community. From what I can see of this, it's pretty much the same setup we had, a little different. I remember the open space was all in the center. It makes sense to spread it out some. So, and I guess we'll getting more look at this by sections. Yes. I understand that correctly. Okay. I've said my piece.
John, any questions?
I guess I would preface my comments first of all on the fact that I was here when we did this in 2005, and the changes that we had at that time, and we all agreed to it. But at the same time, the township, we are all members of township, and we moved to the township for some good reasons, maybe not all the same reasons. I always liked a little bit of land. I don't want to be on top of my neighbor. And there are some areas in the township now that I drive through, and I would not move there. I would not like it because my personality and what I expect to have around my house is not what you're planning here necessarily. But I look at what property is selling for and what's selling in the area, and a lot of people are saying we want a nice house, but we don't want very much land. And of course, we used to mow our own grass. Now who mows their own grass? I still do, but some people don't. I have, when you were talking about the town center, I have some questions there. I know that the county referred to a something like 17 acres, 17.76 acres. Was that all in that town center? The county's letter?
Yes.
You just got, no, the county's letter is referring to essentially the hillside, which is off the west portion of the land that's zoned flexible plan unit development, and that's the property line is the line of the old Casement Road.
Yep.
And is that the city on the other side, or is that no? The city goes right there. Now that's in the city of Paynesville. To the right of that is in the township still. Okay. And
Can I address that?
Yeah.
That dashed line going up through there is the town line.
Bob Busher, 5695 Canyon View Drive, Paynesville. We still own the golf course, and about 20 acres of that is in the township. About 46 acres down below is in the city. But that township strip that was part of the golf course was never part of the PUD originally. Right. So that's the piece that has just come up. I mean, it was just brought to me today. But, another component nobody's talking about because it doesn't count. It's not in the city, or it is in the city. We're talking to Land Conservancy people about, turning that old golf course into a park, an amenity for the whole development that, you know, it's not in the township, so I understand it can't count as green space, but that should turn into a lot of green space for the whole community.
Now, and I didn't write down all the facts, but at one or two times while you were mentioning about the town center, you said that you used that to excuse some other changes that were being made from the original plan in 2005. And that 2005 one, it seems to me like they had just a small area which was located more in the center. That was not quite the same kind of residences
Right.
and that sort of thing. I think that at that time, we talked about possibility of a convenient food store or something of that nature. It sounds like you're talking now about maybe something that's more like craft stores and that sort of thing, which I'm not sure that we could draw people in for that reason. Is the house itself part of this plan here now, or is that still excluded on the outside?
The Casement House?
Yes.
Nobody wants to see that go. I mean, that will stay in one shape or form. But I think this is a great opportunity for the township to really create an identity and be a gem for not only the township, the whole county, really. But I think everybody wants to see that those historic buildings stay and be part of the whole atmosphere of the town center.
The town center, I think, still has a lot of questions in my mind as to whether it could be developed. We have a lot of store spaces that are empty, and we don't have a lot of industrial space that is going to be used as industry, which is tax supporting, supports our taxes a lot. I might not like everything about myself, but none of us are going to like everything about the
Right.
development. I know the Sidley's members of the family for quite a few years, and the buildings that they did do were quality homes, and they were very good in the past. I would still have some concerns on that center, because I'm not sure if you can't attract the type of business, what's going to become of it.
Well, I think everybody like it to be really unique, something that the whole county doesn't have today.
I know that Route 20 does not necessarily beckon people taking pictures of the township.
Right.
With all the used car lots and body shops and everything else, and then we have a shopping center there that does not necessarily doesn't seem to be bringing in the people that we would like to have visiting the east side. We put some efforts into the west side of the town, the township, and I think that eventually the east side is going to grow more. I don't know if this would have. I don't know how long we'll have to wait to see that happen. We might not be around here at that time, but my only question would be if you find that you can't attract the kind of businesses that you're talking about, what becomes of that property then? I would assume if we can't get the development, and remember, there's a third component here, and that's the township wanting some of this property too for facilities. There's been talk of an amphitheater there. If none of the development occurs, then this becomes a passive recreation space or open space as part of the project. I don't think we're giving up and saying that's the best we can do, and it may take several years before we reach the point where we can get some of this development. But I think we're all agreed it's not conventional retail development. It's something unique and special, and so you're coming here because the environment itself is an attraction. It's not just the store. So we've got some work to do to pull this off, but if it doesn't happen, it will be open space. The township may have some facilities. And I understand. I've been a resident of the township most of my life, and we've all seen changes that gradually affect the whole, like the schools. And I'm not sure that this type of thing would attract a lot of students, but that's always have to be addressed at a time when they come up. So I could see that I could generally appreciate all the work that's going into it, and it would be nice to be able to see it develop that way. I think that
I think it's a good idea because each of those pods are going to come back for us to look at separately eventually. And I think that even though we may not agree with everything, looking at it right now, there's going to be some changes that we'll have an opportunity to make along the way. So I could see that it might be worth going along with the plan at this time, but with maybe possibility of changes and buffers and that type of thing might have to be looked at again as each individual pod is developed. So I don't have any other questions at this time.
John.
I don't have any real concerns. I mean, obviously, this is a major undertaking, and I've listened to everybody speak very carefully, and I get a general sense that there's a lot of sincerity and obviously coordination between the trustees and the John here to my left. I get a general sense that there's a lot of sincerity, and that obviously this isn't the last time we're going to meet to talk about this, but I get a general sense that this was going to ultimately be a positive thing, and all of the people that have gotten up there and have spoken, their concerns are certainly valid, but I think that this is being addressed in the proper manner, and look forward to meeting and talking about this as it grows and expands in the future.
Mark.
I would echo what John just alluded to. I have very positive feelings about the upside, if that's the true word. And I also have nothing but respect for the Sidley family and what you have been able to do, and your homes are here, and your investment into this community is here as well. And I happen to know Mr. Davis and the work that he has done, and so I have great respect for the professionalism of the group and the sincerity of the group. I also feel the pain and the concerns that have been expressed, and I would know that you guys would listen to those factors. I'm working with the teams of people that are here to acknowledge that. The one that have not heard a response to does concern me would be the impact to the quality of our services in the township and in the city, and that is the related EMS and fire service and the whole maintenance and road crew work and the impact that it might have. And I don't know that we've heard anything.
Well, Mark, I think the answer to the question, I think on that note, is that we all of us live in the township. All of us pay property taxes. Part of that millage is for roads, fire, and EMS. The people who would live in this development are going to be like you and I. They're going to have to pay the taxes that the trustees and the people on a ballot approve.
Well, okay.
So it's not like they're going to get a free ride. We're going to pay for their services. No, that's not going to happen. I don't think whoever is in the trustees is never going to allow it to happen.
Gotcha.
We're not going to, so that portion of the way that yes, it's going to be additional roadways for the township to maintain. It's going to be additional calls that the EMS and the fire will have to do. But at the same time, those people who are being served by the service department, very good, by the way. Maybe next week you might have some snow, Bill. Number two is that they'll pay for whatever we're paying for those services. So that's how that will be, and it's up to the trustees and administration to determine either when this development gets fully developed, they're going to have to determine as it gets developed whether they're going to put additional people on.
So
that's
those
administrative.
Your comments are duly noted and much appreciated as well. And I have also nothing but respect for our staff and team here in the township as well as in the city. So having said that, getting back to the scope of this, I can, I think I asked Harley at our last meeting about the last go around 2005, John, that you were part of, and they have honored all of the requirements that you were aware of. And I think that speaks well to also the ability for you to deliver on what you say you're going to do. So I myself feel that this will be a plus. I really would like to stress that the group listen to the request, the Christmas list, as you would say, and put some weight to what that means to them. That's what I'm going to ask.
Okay, my turn. Okay, question for you. I have a question for the developer. You don't have to answer it right now. I know that are requesting you're requesting 55-foot wide lots on a single family unit. I would like you to take a look at that and please take that variance out and see if you can get it to 60 feet. I know you're going to cost you some lots, but I think it would be a better development. This is from my personal view. I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for anybody, the township, or anybody on the zoning commission. I'm thinking of myself looking at this project. I'd like to see the developer see if he can go into and maybe not totally eliminate the 55, but see if he can reduce that number of 55 lots to maybe say, like, they maybe try to get at least half of them to 60, add some more green space. I think I would like to see you, as you're developing your pods, I'd like to see that green space go from 17 to the 20%, as close as you can get it, as you're developing it. I think I'd like to see that. I think it's a good development. I'm not saying it's terrible, but I think if we look at trying to increase the green space, trying to eliminate some of that, I think 55 feet is really, really a narrow lot. And I understand what you're trying to do, and I respect that. But I'm trying to say from the standpoint of what we're seeing in the township, I think a 60-foot, that is the standard. That is the minimum lot size, 60 foot. So, and we're only asking for 5 more feet. I know that when you add the 5 more feet to all the lots you're looking for 55, it's going to cost you some lots. I understand that. What I'm trying to say is, see if you can take some of those 55-foot lots out and make it 60 foot as you're developing the pods. Green space, see if you can add some more green space. And I think also as if this thing's approved by the trustees and as we go forward in this project, if we do, because I can't predict the future, I can only predict what I'm saying right now, is that I think the developer take a look at the buffers, especially along the existing properties that are people who are living now. If you can take a look at, see how you want to develop that buffer and what kind of green fencing, I'll call it, lack of a better word, between the people living along the existing right now at Foxfire, Dalton, all that area in there, and see if we can get a little bit of more of a green buffer, if we can, or make sure we have the setbacks, for why not, so we have privacy, like some of the people we're talking about. That would be nice as we progress with this thing. I will say this: I do like when I first saw this early, and I'm seeing it today. I like the way you changed the way the roadway, or the connection at Belmore, connection at Foxfire. It's not a direct like come right off, but one of the local streets and going right into Foxfire. If you want to go to Foxfire, you're gonna have to go around and zigzag around a maze to get to it. And same thing with Belmore. Same thing. So I appreciate that. So by you folks looking at revising that internal roadway plan to try to limit the impact your development is going to have at Foxfire and development is going to have at Belmore. I'd like you to go take that same energy and that same foresight and take a look at the rear yards and the yardage that the yards that you're doing, that go abut the existing homes. Take a look at that. Take a look at the 55 to 60. I would like to see that happen, if we can, as we can progress in, as Mr. Hart said earlier, at about an hour and a half ago, that we're going to be coming back at you at each individual phase. I'm not concerned about the roadway per se, because I know that my background will be looking at that report. I can guarantee you that. I can almost guarantee you that. Also, I know that our office will, and I know the Lake County Planning Commission will. So I know that there will be things that need to be built. What they are, we don't know at this time. Again, as Mr. Hart said, this thing will be a development. It's going to be progressing depending upon market condition. The time you do each of the phase 1, 2, and 3. I have confidence that with our government officials and with the developers, that we will have something that will be good. And I will ask you also, when you look at that south connection to Madison, keep in mind you have a elementary school to the east, and you have Riverside Drive to the west. As far as I'm concerned, that is, you be very careful where you put that connection on the Madison, because it's going to affect the school district at the elementary school, and it's going to affect the traffic going in and out of Riverside Drive. So I would suggest to the Moses Shirakas people, take a good look at that, because that could create a lot of left turns in that small space. And if you put that connection in the wrong location, you're going to be building some more infrastructure than you really want to do. So it may take a look at that location and see where it might be better traffic flow wise. I have an idea, but I can't let it go at that, because I'm only a zoning commission. But we got to take a look at Madison Avenue and Madison Avenue. This used to be Madison Avenue School, now it's called Parkview or Riverview Elementary School. We got to take a counter of that. So as you're developing, especially in Pod E, for that connection at Casement and on the Casement east-west connector as it goes to Bohall, I would make sure the intersection site distance is there. The stopping site distance is there. Also, in your detailed study, look at Bohall and Madison. I work for the county. I'll admit to everybody, I work for the county engineer. I work for the Lake County engineer. That's my day job. And Bohall and Madison Avenue is going to be an intersection is going to be impacted, and I think it may I'm not going to say yes for sure, but it may be some improvements at that intersection will need to be made as this development goes forward. So I have the confidence that the team will look at those impacts and address them accordingly. And I will say that our government officials will make sure that that is looked at. And I'll have a little look at Sarah Jones myself. So, having said all that, I want to thank the audience.
Ted.
Oh, sorry.
Can I make one more comment?
No. Yes, you may. Go ahead, Daryl.
I'm concerned for Mr. Cadilla in relationship to how people treat nursery lands. having worked with development around nursery lands, people think that that is being their own private open space. And they trespass on it and do things that they really don't have a legal right to do. I don't know how you stop that other than put some kind of a buffer, some kind of a deterrent to stop it. I mean, there was a nursery over on the west side of Painesville Township. It's now a housing development. People go out there and ride their dirt bikes in it and tear up the plants. So I'm concerned about this kind of activity, and if we can't find something to help Mr. Catala in relationship to this, because I just, in my mind, see these kinds of things in the offing. And I just think if there's something we can do to help him, we should do it.
We've experienced that kind of problem.
Yeah. You probably got them now already.
Daryl, anyway?
That's it.
I think developers has heard what their concerns. And I think you will try to accommodate as much as you can. It's a give and take. I'm going to thank you all for one thing, for your composure and for your demeanor. It's been great. I realize not everybody in the room is doing a cheerleading contest for this development. I know not everybody is passionately for it, and I know some people have concerns. Your concerns today were brought up. We will take them into account when we, as if this thing is passed, as we go forward. And believe me, we'll have our own at each phase. We'll have our own, and we'll go back and forth on it. So, having said all this, I want to thank everybody. And what I'm going to do right now is I will entertain. Okay, what we do now, we had a public hearing. It is now over. So the commission has a decision to make. We can either.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rob. Forgive me.
What I'm going to look for now is a motion by the commission to either A, continue the public hearing for additional information, if they so deem necessary, or B, to close the public hearing.
Can I make one more comment? Richard Cattle again. Is there any possible way that these neighbors can be included on further things such as this, just so we are aware of what's going on, like any kind of notifications, just so there's no surprises, like, hi, we're here, we're building a road. I mean, I don't mean to speak out of place either, because I don't know how this works. So I am nervous. My grandfather's nervous. We're all a little nervous. Harley?
So, per our regulations, all abutting properties will receive notice every time there's a public hearing. And your property does abut. There will be another public hearing held by the trustees. You will receive notice for that public hearing as well. Tonight, the zoning commission, what the vote that they take is a recommendation. They vote to either recommend approval or recommend that it be denied. And that's forwarded to the trustees. And then ultimately the final decision on approval denial rests with the township trustees at their public hearing that they hold.
Is there any possible way it could be a little bit more than 10 days, being what we do? Because we only had like 5 days really to even make plans, because it was mailed on Friday, got here Tuesday. We showed up here Wednesday to receive the information, and then, like 5 days later, 4 days later, we're here.
So we do.
Can we make it business days and not just days?
We do our notifications per ORC for
Right.
public hearings.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah, so and that's always been our policy to change the policy. That would be
just
more
the business days even.
yeah, so that would require more conversation and consideration by both the zoning commission as well as the trustees to change the policy for legal notices. So I can't promise that will happen.
Sure.
I can promise that we will meet our requirement for the legal notice as ORC requires of us. It is also in the legal notices in the paper. It is also published the same Friday that the mailings are stamped
Yeah,
and sent
I'm
out.
aware.
So
I just know that like there's a lot of big moving parts with this.
Yeah.
That we're in business, and sometimes we're not available. And I mean, just true, but we can make arrangements and not miss something. This is such a big project for the community. And
I don't want to be bold and promise something that I
I'm not
can't
asking for a
give.
promise. I'm just asking for a concern.
However, if you leave your email address on that list, the sign-in sheet,
Yes.
I will try to create an email notification chain for the neighborhood for anybody that would like to receive updated application documents. If you want to provide your email address on this list, and that'll apply to any of the neighbors, whether or not they're adjacent. I'll need to for those that are watching and that would like to be on a potential email notification list, which I must run by prior to changing policy. My email address is hdeleon. That's D as in dog, E as in Edward, L as in lion, E as in Edward, O as in October, N as in November, at Painesville TWP, T as in Tom, W as in whiskey, P as in papa.com. If you email me your information, letting me know that you would like to be notified as each subsequent phase is applied for, I will create that list so I can forward that information out. Okay.
Okay.
Sir, Mr. President, I would like to, given most of the options that you had put out, I'd like to accept a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay.
Unless that we have not heard fully enough from the people that are represented here.
Well, I look at it this way, Mark. Make a motion to close the public hearing. If I don't get a second, or the motion doesn't pass, then we'll.
Then I would open up. I would accept.
Okay, I have a motion on the table to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Okay, John Hott,
Yes.
John Everett,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Daryl,
Yes.
and Chairman.
Yes. Now, what that means is we close the public hearing is closed for this rezoning application. We have 30 days to make a decision. And if you look on we have items, and we have that'll be number 9. We'll see what we want to do with that. So it'll be up to number 9. So public hearing is done. Number 6. Number 7 is new business. Do we have any new business tonight before the commission? Okay, hearing none. We have any old business coming to the commission? Besides me? None? Okay. We have a public hearing that was closed. So we have to make, our decision is this. We either recommend to the trustees to approve, our recommendation to the trustees to approve the proposed modification, or not. But our recommendation to the trustees, once it goes to the trustees, they'll have their own public hearing and their own decision making, like we're going to be doing at the present time. So we have a closed public hearing. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the.
Ed, I would indicate that when we make the motion has to be made in the positive.
Correct.
So it will be approved, and if we want to disapprove it, we'll say no.
Okay. Sorry about that. I missed it. I forgot about that, Daryl, thank you very much.
No problem.
All right. So I entertain a motion for approval of the modification to the zoning.
I'll make that motion.
John made the motion, second by Mark.
I will second that.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Again, if you vote yes, you're approving the modification for recommendation to the trustees. If you vote no, you mean you're not approving it. You're not approving a recommendation. Roll call. Any discussion? I don't want to be. Roll call, please.
Okay, Daryl,
Yes.
John Everett,
Still yes.
Mark,
Yes.
John Hott,
Yes.
and Chairman.
This for you, no. Yes. It's passed. It'll go to the trustees, and it'll go again. We're going to be seeing this thing a couple of times, and more than once, and that's where we'll get into the more detailed meat of the development. Next is items. We have no items to be held for public hearing. Zoning inspector's report.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to say that there's upcoming will be the recommendation to rezone the properties on Northridge from I-2 or I-1 rather.
I-1
to B3.
Oh, B3?
In anticipation of the development going in, actually thanks to Shauna Shea, our zoning inspector, and I don't want to get anybody too excited, but Giant Eagle does still own vacant property there, and thanks to Sean, they were made aware of this potential development and have shown interest in relocating to the east side of the township. There's also other potential additional commercial interest, and with the Red Creek Interceptor now providing the sanitary can be extended where the current industrial properties don't have access to sanitary services. So
it's coming up.
that'll be an upcoming
Great
case.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any further business to come to the commission? Hearing none, I will. Next meeting is March 13th, 2023. I'll adjourn the meeting at 8:37. Thank you very much, folks. Have a great evening. Hope the Cavs are winning.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you.
Welcome.
George.
I know you'll hold this to a great standard.
Huh?